Well, for me, it was frightening on a couple of levels because I've never, in all the time that I've been coming to London, and
Sammy Davis Jr. kept a storage unit under a fake name. He paid cash every month until he died. For 3 decades, it sat untouched in a Burbank warehouse. When they finally opened it, investigators found more than memorabilia. There were letters about his real mother's identity, tapes of conversations that could destroy careers, and proof of what really happened with Kim Novak in 1958. He documented everything. After 30 years of silence, the truth is finally out. Sammy Davis Jr. was born on December 8, 1925 in Harlem, New York City. His parents, Sammy Davis Sr. and Ella Sanchez, were both vaudeville performers. That meant Sammy entered the world with show business already in his blood. But there was a hidden part of his story. His mother, Ella, was Cuban. The family kept that quiet because of anti-Cuban feelings in America at the time. In those days, revealing such roots could hurt record sales and public support. Even as a newborn, Sammy's life was shaped by racism and the need to hide parts of who he was. Harlem, alive with the energy of the Harlem Renaissance, became his first stage, setting the tone for the rest of his life. By age 2, Sammy was already performing with the Will Maston Trio, the act led by his father and family friend, Will Maston. Most toddlers played with toys. Sammy danced and sang in theaters across the country. The spotlight became his playground, but it came at a cost. He didn't have a normal childhood. Instead, he learned to charm audiences and master his craft while other kids went to school. The constant touring was exhausting, but it gave him strength. It also showed him the ugly face of racism in America. He saw the signs that said whites only, and felt the sting of being treated differently. That fire inside him to break barriers started young. At just 3, Sammy's life took another turn. His parents split. His father took custody and brought him even deeper into show business. Will Maston became more than a mentor. He became like a godfather, shielding Sammy as best he could. But there was only so much protection anyone could offer. Sammy saw the discrimination black performers faced. But he also saw how to fight back with talent, with grace, and with relentless hard work. Even as a toddler, he was no ordinary kid. By now, he was a seasoned pro, traveling from city to city, leaving crowds in awe. When Sammy was 7, he stepped onto the big screen in Rufus Jones for President. He acted alongside Ethel Waters in a film that dared to imagine a black boy as president. The movie was funny, but it carried weight. In a time when black faces were rare in Hollywood, Sammy's charm lit up the screen. His singing and dancing captured hearts. The film hinted at what was to come. Sammy wasn't just a performer. He was a force. He had the rare gift of making people look past the color of his skin, if only for a few minutes. But the life of the stage meant sacrifice. Sammy never went to school like other kids. There were no desks, no chalkboards, no school bells for him. His learning came from the road, from books he found, from the people he met, from the stages he owned. He taught himself languages, instruments, and skills that no classroom could offer. His hunger for knowledge matched his hunger to perform. He proved that greatness doesn't always come from a schoolhouse. It can come from passion, grit, and a mind that never stops wanting to learn. In 1943, everything changed. At 18 years old, 5'6" and 120 pounds, Sammy was drafted into the U.S. Army. He left the safety of the stage and entered a world that was far crueler. He joined one of the first integrated units, but the promise of unity was a lie. The army was filled with racism. The first soldier he met called him a slur. The brutal truth hit him hard. His talent meant nothing in uniform. He fought to survive, facing fights and hate almost every day. The army was supposed to build men. For Sammy, it broke his innocence. The abuse he faced was shocking. Once white soldiers kidnapped him and painted him white from head to toe, mocking everything he was. Another time, they tricked him into drinking beer laced with urine. Some nights they urinated on him. His nose was broken 3 times. And they weren't done. They humiliated him by forcing him to perform, scrawling slurs on his forehead before shoving him on stage. The cruelty was endless, designed to crush him. One night, soldiers tied him to a tree in the freezing cold. He stood there helpless like so many victims of racial terror before him. The cold bit into his skin, but the pain went deeper. It was a message. No matter where you go, no matter what you achieve, remember your place. The army didn't protect him. It looked the other way. That night stayed with him forever, a scar on his body and his heart. It got worse. In one savage attack, a group of soldiers beat him so badly, he spent 3 days in the hospital. The beating wasn't random, it was a punishment. But no one was held accountable. The army that was supposed to unite Americans let the hate fester. Sammy lay in that hospital bed, realizing he had to survive on his own strength. The pain drove him to dark places. He thought of ending it all. The weight of hate, the endless cruelty, it almost broke him. But something pulled him back. When he joined the Army's entertainment unit, he found his weapon, his voice, his dancing, his showmanship. Even the men who hated him couldn't deny it. Their applause gave him power. When Sammy Davis Jr. came back from military service in 1951, he was ready to take on the world. He had fought for his country, and now he wanted to fight for his place in show business. That chance arrived at Kiro, the most glamorous nightclub on Sunset Boulevard. It was March 1951. Sammy, as part of the Will Maston Trio, opened for Janice Page. The night was magical. But after the Academy Awards that same year, something incredible happened. The room filled with stars like Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Beale, Cary Grant, Marilyn Monroe, and Judy Garland. They watched in awe as Sammy delivered a performance that made him a star overnight. The buzz was unstoppable. Bookings poured in. In 1952, he appeared on Eddie Kaner's Colgate Comedy Hour and even got a $20,000 TV pilot from ABC. It was unheard of for a black entertainer. No sponsor backed it, but Sammy had already broken through. Sierra Rose made him the talk of the town. Just 3 years later, in 1954, tragedy struck. On November 19th, Sammy, just 29 years old, was driving his Cadillac from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. On US Route 66, another car backed into his lane at a fork. The crash forced the car's horn button into his left eye. The damage was permanent. He was rushed to community hospital, but doctors couldn't save the eye. He stayed only 9 days. Friends like Frank Sinatra stood by him. Offers for shows came in at triple his old rate. Sammy wore an eye patch at first, then a glass eye. He joked, calling himself a one-eyed Negro who's Jewish. Many thought his career was. 8 weeks after the accident, Sammy was back on stage at Cyrano's, dazzling Hollywood's finest once again. That accident changed his life in another way. In 1960, he converted to Judaism. While recovering, he read about the Jewish people's long struggle to survive, inspired by a gift from his friend Eddie Cantor, who gave him a mezuzah and spoke to him about faith. Sammy felt deeply connected, saying he had always been Jewish in his thinking. Many mocked him, but he believed that being both black and Jewish made him stronger. He became a symbol of resilience and a strong voice for civil rights. Despite his fame, Sammy faced racism head-on. In 1950s Las Vegas, he could headline shows but was barred from staying in the hotels where he performed, entering through side doors, and being denied restaurant service. He refused to accept this, using his influence, and the Rat Pack's clout, to pressure casinos to change. By the early 1960s, he was earning $25,000 a week at the Sands, and became the first black entertainer to stay at the Frontier, helping pave the way for the end of official segregation in Las Vegas by 1971. But Sammy was far more than a singer. He was a multi-talented performer who taught himself drums, trumpet, piano, vibraphone, and more, with a knack for impressions, comedy, dance, and even gun tricks. His unmatched versatility earned him the nickname Mr. Show Business. In 1956, he conquered Broadway with Mr. Wonderful, a show written specifically for him, nearly unheard of for a black star at the time. Though critics panned it, his charisma kept seats filled for 383 performances, recouping its $225,000 budget. He made each show unique, often adding nightclub elements and even bringing his father and uncle on stage, with a young Chita Rivera among the cast. Off-stage, he threw lavish parties and lived a high-profile life. In 1964, he broke barriers again with Goem, Eldon Boy, playing a black boxer in love with a white woman, a role that brought death threats and outrage over their onstage kiss. Sammy refused to back down, earning a Tony nomination and forcing audiences to confront racial prejudice. He also marched in Selma with Martin Luther King Jr., risking his career for what he believed in. His film career thrived as well, from Anna Lucasta, 1958, to Porgy and Bess, 1959, with Sidney Poitier and Dorothy Dandridge, to Sweet Charity, 1969, under Bob Fosse's direction. In 1960, he joined the Rat Pack in Ocean's 11, later appearing in Robin and the Seven Hoods, 1964, helping open doors for black actors in Hollywood. On television, Sammy was everywhere, appearing on The Ed Sullivan Show, The Tonight Show, and even headlining the Sammy Davis Jr. Show in 1966, one of the first primetime variety shows led by a black entertainer, featuring stars like Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. His tireless work ethic, granting dozens of interviews weekly, helped pave the way for other black artists on TV. His lifelong friendship with Frank Sinatra began in 1941, when a 15-year-old Sammy performed with the Will Maston Trio in Detroit, and impressed the 26-year-old Sinatra. Over the years, Frank gave Sammy crucial opportunities, like opening for him at the Capitol Theater in 1947, and personally confronting racism on his behalf, walking into clubs with him, refusing gigs at segregated venues, and paying his medical bills after Sammy's 1954 car accident. Sinatra pushed him to return to the stage within weeks, cementing Sammy's reputation for courage. Their friendship shone on screen in Ocean's 11, whose $5.5 million box office take, about $55 million today, solidified Sammy as more than just a sidekick. He was a star. By the late 1950s, he was commanding up to $25,000 a week in Vegas, breaking racial barriers in accommodations and ownership stakes in casinos. His persistence contributed to Nevada's 1971 law banning hotel discrimination. When he died in 1990, Las Vegas dimmed its lights in his honor, the same city that had once rejected him. His film career continued with Sergeants 3, 1962, where he famously wore a hat borrowed from John Wayne, and Robin and the Seven Hoods, 1964, proving he could hold his own alongside Frank, Dean, and Bing Crosby. These films and performances cemented Sammy Davis Jr. as one of the greatest all-around entertainers in history. Sammy Davis Jr.'s life was not just about fame. It was filled with love, danger, defiance, and tragedy. In 1957, he fell in love with Kim Novak, one of Hollywood's biggest stars, after meeting on The Steve Allen Show. They spent whole days together, met each other's families, and tried to keep their interracial relationship secret in an era when only 4% of Americans approved, and the lynching of Emmett Till was still fresh in the public mind. Sammy would hide under blankets in cars and meet Kim at a Malibu beach house. But in January 1958, a false gossip report of their engagement spread panic in Hollywood. Studios feared backlash. Mobsters tied to Columbia Pictures kidnapped him, and he was told to end things or risk losing his remaining eye, or worse. Even mob boss Sam Giancana said he couldn't protect him. Terrified, Sammy broke up with Kim on January 7, 1958, and days later entered a sham marriage with black singer Lorraine White, paying her $25,000 to appease the mob and the press. Distraught, he tried to strangle her on their wedding night, later being found alone with a gun. The marriage ended by April, leaving Sammy emotionally shattered. His next major love story came in 1960, when he married Swedish actress May Britt, a bold challenge to America's racial taboos. Interracial marriage was illegal in 31 states, and a Gallup poll showed only 4% public approval. After bomb threats forced them to move their wedding from Temple Israel of Hollywood to his home, they married with Frank Sinatra and Peter Lawford as witnesses. Both converted to Judaism, becoming one of the few high-profile black Jewish interracial couples. They paid a heavy price. Swastikas were painted on their property. Britt lost her contract with 20th Century Fox, and Davis was disinvited from JFK's 1961 inauguration. They raised 3 children, Tracy, Mark, and Jeff, while shielding them from racism. But Britt's career ended, and in 1968, she divorced Sammy for extreme cruelty, citing his affair with singer Lola Falana. His endless touring, public hatred, and personal demons deepened his drug and alcohol use, turning his Beverly Hills home into a party house. In 1970, he married dancer Altovise Gore, with whom he adopted a son, Manny, in 1989. Their marriage endured rumors of wild parties and infidelity, and by his death in 1990, she inherited over $7 million in tax debt, losing nearly everything. Despite earning $50 million in his career, sometimes $185,000 a night, Sammy's gambling, generosity, bad business deals, and shady tax shelters left him broke. His 1972 hit, The Candyman, topped the charts, and I've Gotta Be Me became his anthem of resilience. But drugs, alcohol, and occult dabbling haunted his life. He broke racial barriers in Las Vegas, demanded equal treatment, and starred on groundbreaking TV shows, yet addiction sometimes made him unreliable. In 1988, he reunited with Sinatra and Dean Martin for a massive arena tour. But by 1989, throat cancer, caused by smoking up to 4 packs a day, threatened his life. He chose radiation over losing his voice, but the cancer returned, and he died on May 16, 1990, at age 64, leaving massive debts. The IRS seized his estate, forcing Altovise to auction off his personal treasures, from his gold Candyman record to his tap shoes, raising only $439,000 toward the $7 million owed. Even more heartbreak came when a stolen ID storage locker was discovered containing hidden belongings, including a jukebox, trumpet, and personal photos, stashed by a former employee to protect them from the IRS. It was a sad final chapter for a man whose talent changed American entertainment, but whose life was scarred by racism, vice, and financial ruin.